Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Vanessa Rufus. I'll be your host for the next 2 hours. Wanted to let you know a couple of things that we're following this evening. Of course, the big breaking news of this evening regarding the state auditor looking into now City of Charlotte and potential settlement that it might have made with CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings. We also wanted to let you know that throughout our program here this evening, you might see us either popping up the radar just to give you a look, or even bringing on Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich to talk about our weather aware evening that we have. Of course, some concerns with potential weather impacts, small risk of tornado in the overnight hours and going into Wednesday morning. So just one or two of the big items that we're following today. Of course, many more headlines to come over the next 2 hours. But we do want to start with that big news today from City of Charlotte and the state auditor's investigation. Quick recap here, and this is kind of a long, convoluted story, but we're going to start with the very latest. We just obtained a letter today from the North Carolina office of the state auditor. This was a letter addressed to Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles, and it is essentially laying out an investigation to come into a potential disbursement of public dollars that were done potentially outside the public view. This was a potential settlement that was given to CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings, ranging between $100,000 to $300,000. And we heard Councilmember Victoria Watlington just a couple of weeks ago raise concerns about corruption on this front and the fact of how this settlement was allegedly done. We wanted to bring in some more insight into this matter. And so we have joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, the research director for Taxpayers Protection Alliance. We have David McGarry joining us. So David, thanks so much for your time and thanks for coming on Live Impact News.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we've kind of gotten you up to date on some of the case, and of course, as we chat a little bit more over the next several minutes, we can weave in more of the backstory to this alleged settlement. But what is your first takeaway with a situation like this, knowing that I know that your organization is very attuned to trying to root out waste of taxpayer dollars and try to prevent that from happening? So in just a little bit of a recap that we sent you on the situation, what are your thoughts?
One of the primary virtues of local government is that it allows the people to both participate in the government, but also to have a certain amount of transparency, which in turn enables a certain amount of accountability. And these are very good things. And one of the most concerning elements of this entire episode is the murkiness that surrounds it all. We, as you allude to, we don't precisely know for sure exactly what's going on. And worse, it seems as the council member has stated that sometimes the government officials themselves don't exactly know what's going on, but nonetheless, something seems to have proceeded behind the scenes.
Now, I mean, I know that you all look into matters on your own as well, and you take a keen interest, as we mentioned, in trying to curb waste of taxpayer dollars. What can you say as far as the state auditor? Because I guess I kind of feel like some of the goals are the same, in the sense that in this case, the state auditor says that he believes he is working on behalf of the people of Charlotte. Writing this is a quote, by the way, from the letter that was sent to the mayor. Quote, "Even if the payment," so he's referring to the settlement, potential settlement with the police chief, "was worth 1 penny, it should be disclosed to the public in a timely and transparent manner. There is no tax dollar free from public scrutiny." What are your thoughts on that?
That is entirely right. The first duty of the state auditor is to shed light on this situation so that the taxpayers and the voters can know what's going on and make their own judgments about whether something wrong has occurred. In the best case scenario, this has been entirely harmless, and yet still the taxpayers and the voters would have a right to know. And in the worst case scenario, this would be a case of a high-ranking city official becoming upset over certain convoluted goings on, and then working within the political system to secure a fairly large six-figure payout.
I want to take folks back through, because we mentioned the storyline here is kind of long, but we wanted to kind of explain some of the backstory that led up to this potential settlement. This stems from a potential back and forth with a former council member, Tarek Bakari, District 6, who, by the way, we just saw a new council member taking over that position today, officially sworn in, as Mr. Bakari has stepped down from that position to pursue a role within the Trump administration. But this was over a dispute, more or less, over the police chief at one point not allowing his officers to wear outer carrier vests. And this got particularly heated after a deadly officer ambush that happened April of last year. Mr. Bakari made a resurged push, if you will. This was a push that he had been doing for a while, but this brought it back to the forefront, this extra layer of protection. And essentially some of these text messages sent to the chief, there were allegations that they were threatening in nature, but essentially we did obtain some of the text messages where Mr. Bakari is addressing the chief, but essentially telling him he's going to go to war over this and potentially ruin his legacy. And this is where we see this alleged settlement come from behind closed doors. David, I'm curious, what do you tell folks? What is your messaging to folks when it comes to trying to educate people on knowing what your government is doing and how it is handling things? Because I imagine you probably want folks to be aware and try to stay as knowledgeable as possible.
The simple fact is that politics get messy. Things get heated, emotions rise, and elected officials do not always behave themselves exactly as we wish that they would. However, that doesn't mean that the taxpayers are on the hook for large-scale payouts, and that certainly doesn't mean that taxpayers don't have a right to know exactly what's going on and how public funds are being directed. As I've alluded to, there seems to be multiple levels of dissatisfaction that surround this case. There seem to be multiple levels of the details being shrouded from both elected officials and from the general public. And that's simply no way to run a railroad, much less a government. The voters to whom officials are directly accountable should know exactly where public monies are going. And this applies not only to cases like this that involve settlements, but this also applies to cases of other dispersals of public funds. At the end of the day, tax dollars come from the people. They come from the paychecks that hardworking voters earn, and voters, because of that fact, have a right to know precisely where that money is being directed.
By your experience, with your sample size of the work that you do and perhaps, I guess, the investigations that you do, how common would you say government waste is when you actually start to get wind of a case, let's say, and you start to look into it? How frequently would you say it actually turns out to be a situation where there is money being wasted?
The proverbial waste, fraud, and abuse is incredibly incredibly common at all levels of government. And unfortunately, sometimes at the local level, it becomes even more common because the simple fact is that local officials sometimes think that they're outside of the media spotlight and therefore that they can get away with cutting certain corners that they might not otherwise be able to if they were subjected to the scrutiny of the national media. Now, I don't want to cast any specific aspersions or make any specific claims until we have the full facts of the case, but there's certainly smoke in this case. There's certainly warning signs that something that is not quite on the up and up has occurred. And because of that fact, the state auditor is perfectly perfectly within both his rights, but also he's really bound by duty to get involved here and to ensure that there is some level of accountability and there is a certain level of transparency in a case like this, in which the details, which should be public, are simply not.
Anything that you would like to leave our viewers here with on Live Impact News before we let you go, as far as this case, in general, government spending, what people can do, maybe even to just empower themselves to be better citizens and better watchdogs?
The old phrase goes that knowledge is power. the idea that people should vote for elected representatives and then allow the government to run on autopilot without much scrutiny has a pretty dark and dismal history wherever it's been implemented. So I would encourage your viewers to stay on this case, remain educated, continue putting pressure on public officials to sort this out and reveal exactly what's been going on. The certain I shouldn't quite say scandals yet, but certain problematic instances have oftentimes gone, shall we say, they've flown under the radar. As people lose interest, they move on to other stories. Maybe they get distracted by national issues. But government works best where the people are doggedly in pursuit of their elected officials to ensure that everything is done well, taxpayer dollars are spent to their best uses, and to ensure that there is the necessary transparency to ensure that people are held accountable and public funds are not being misused.
David McGarry with Taxpayers Protection Alliance, we thank you so much for your time, and come and join us whenever you'd like here on Live Impact News. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And folks at home will remind you, of course, as David so aptly pointed out, of course, an investigation does not necessarily mean wrongdoing. This is simply an investigation by the state auditor into city leadership to see how things were done and if there was any wrongdoing. But the letter sent to Mayor Lyles today indicates that Dave Biolik, the state auditor, will be asking questions such as whether there was a payment, because once again, this is kind of rumor mill in some situations, I guess we'll say. There is going to be a question about how much was reportedly paid, if there was anything paid, where did the money come from specifically, and as well, of course, several other pertinent questions. So we will definitely be keeping you up to date with the very latest on the situation. We'll let people know too that our Siobhan Riley has picked up that story for this evening. So if you keep it here on WCNC Plus, we'll have updates for you throughout the evening. She's reaching out to city officials. We've reached out to the mayor. We're reaching out to council members to see if there's comment on this. We've reached out to the state auditor's office. And we're trying to dig on this and get the very latest for you, all of the information, because we too are watchdogs and we want to make sure that you are informed and everything is on the up and up when it comes to our government officials. So stay tuned throughout Live Impact News, as well as our 11 o'clock news right here on WCNC Plus. So we mentioned, of course, not just that, we're watching some severe weather potential, not just for our area later this evening, but also in other regions, particularly the Midwest, which of course we know has already been pretty hard hit by tornadoes. It's been a deadly past couple of days, a very devastating past couple of days. So keep it here. Of course, we've got our radar for you in the bottom right corner of the screen. That is going to be local, and you can kind of zoom out here as you see the wider picture of the region itself. That line of storms that is once again moving through. It looks primarily like Tennessee at this point, coming towards North Carolina and South Carolina. We will expect to have Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich join us sometime here during Live Impact News. That, of course, what time will depend on when things start to get more active and what he is seeing on the radar front. Meantime, we want to talk about a big announcement from today, national front. We had President Trump talking about new plans here to try to create what he is essentially referring to as the Golden Dome. This is going to be a missile defense system. It's pretty ambitious. It is quite expensive from what we're seeing from estimates. This is essentially going to be a system that could intercept missiles, even if they're launched from the other side of the world or even from space. As the president says, the system's supposed to be around $175 billion. And he says that this would take a few years. However, there are some other estimates out there that would say otherwise. For example, recent estimate from the Congressional Budget Office said that it could be between $161 and $542 billion, and it might take 2 decades. So with that, let's listen into the president's description of Golden Dome and his thoughts on the plan.
you very much, and thank you for being here in the Oval Office, one of the great places of the world, as we make a historic announcement about the Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield. That's something we want, and Ronald Reagan wanted it many years ago, but they didn't have the technology, but it's something we're going to have. We're going to have it at the highest level. I want to thank Secretary Hegseth, who's been fantastic, and Secretary Rubio, and Space Force Vice Chief of Space Operations, General Mike Gutlein. I also want to recognize Senators Dan Sullivan, Kevin Cramer, and Jim Banks, fantastic senators, great talents, great political talents, and people that love our country. In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful, and now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air. I'm also pleased to report that the One Big Beautiful Bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome to help construction get underway. That's the initial sort of a down deposit. And we have probably, you're talking about, General, we're talking about $175 billion total cost of this when it's completed. This afternoon, I'm also announcing that I will appoint, very importantly, General Gutlein to lead the ambitious new effort as the Direct Reporting Program Manager for the Golden Dome. A very talented man, and I'm very honored to have been the one that helped or really created Space Force. Space Force has turned out to be a tremendous success. We were third in space, and now we're number one in space by a lot. It's not even close. And Mike is a 4-star Space Force general, the recipient of the Defense Distinguished Service Medal, one of the most respected people in the world having to do with defense. You know, we have offense and we have defense. I'll bet he's good at offense too. And he has an unmatched background in missile warning technology and defense procurement. General Gutlein also knows that we need to move fast. No one is more qualified for his job, and everybody, this was a universal acceptance of General Gutlein. Everybody that knows him and knows everybody else, they said there's only one man for the job, so I have a feeling we have the right guy. But now I'd like to invite Secretary Hegseth and the General to please say a few words and describe the system a little bit. And we appreciate you being here. The press has really been very fair over the last period of a couple of months. I don't know what happened to you. It was so much more exciting the other way. But you've been very, very fair. We have very high poll numbers, the highest we've ever had. And I think we're doing a great job. We had a tremendous trip to the Middle East, as you know. It was a really amazing trip. And now I came home, and this is the one I was really looking forward to this day, because this is very important for the success and even survival of our country. It's a pretty evil world out there, so this is something that goes a long way toward the survival of this great country. And as I said, we'll be discussing Canada. They want to hook in, and they want to see if they can be a part of it. That sort of makes sense. I guess that's what I was talking about from day one. You know, it just automatically makes sense. and it won't be very difficult to do, but they'll pay their fair share. Thank you very much, everybody. And Pete, go ahead.
Sure. Well, Mr. President, add this to the long and growing list of promises made and promises kept. Ultimately, this right here, the Golden Dome for America, is game changer. It's a generational investment in the security of America and Americans. Mr. President, you said we're going to secure our southern border and get 100% operational control after the previous administration allowed an invasion of people into our country. President Reagan 40 years ago cast the vision for it. The technology wasn't there. Now it is, and you're following through to say we will protect the homeland from cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, drones, whether they're conventional or nuclear. It's not lost on me, sir, also that you had the vision to start the Space Force, and here we are when the others said we didn't need it. Here we are in the Oval Office with one of the leaders of the Space Force in General Gutlein leading the charge on putting in place a game-changing Golden Dome for America. So, sir, it's an honor to be a part of this bold initiative. We're going to get to work on it. We have been since you signed that executive order on January 27th. We've been fast forward on this. We're here on this day, and this is just one stop in delivering this defense of the homeland, which is something you've charged us with doing, and we'll keep going until it is complete, sir.
Thank you, Pete. Pete's done a great job, by the way. Thank you very much. General, please.
President, today is a great day for the nation as we double down on protection of the homeland. As you're aware, our adversaries have become very capable and very intent on holding the homeland at risk. While we have been focused on keeping the peace overseas, our adversaries have been quickly modernizing their nuclear forces, building out ballistic missiles capable of hosting multiple warheads, building out hypersonic missiles capable of attacking the United States within an hour and traveling at 6,000 miles an hour, building cruise missiles that can navigate around our radar and our defenses, and building submarines that can sneak up on our shores, and worse yet, building space weapons. It is time that we change that equation and start doubling down on the protection of the homeland. Golden Dome is a bold and aggressive approach to hurry up and protect the homeland from our adversaries. We owe it to our children and our children's children to protect them and to afford them a quality of life that we have all grown up enjoying. Golden Dome will afford that. I greatly appreciate your trust in me and your nomination in me and your trust in the team to deliver this. It is a great day for America.
And also, very importantly, we're the only ones that have this. We call it super technology. Nobody else has it. And nobody else has really near what we have. So this is a very exciting project. This is something that will, the general said close to 100% protection, so that's something we need. I think it's and everything's going to be made in the USA, by the way, very importantly. So it's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. And I just noticed you too, Jim, you're standing there, and behind you is a very important document, Declaration of Independence. And that was in the for many decades right under this area. I have vaults with pictures on top. You have Abraham Lincoln. You see that was the original Abraham Lincoln, the original Washington. And does everybody know who the middle was? General Grant. And so it's very exciting. You look over here, and above Ronald Reagan, you have Thomas Jefferson. That's Monroe from the Monroe document. And you know who that is, right? Andrew Jackson. So we have a lot of very exciting pictures, and on the other side, likewise, some great presidents and great people. And many of these, because people were asking about them, many of them, almost all of them, were in the vaults or nearby, but generally in the vaults downstairs, where we have some great. So it's very exciting. The place has become a little different than you first saw it, Jim, right?
Yes, much better.
It's a little bit different. It's slightly better. But to think we had them, and some were in the vaults for over 100 years, so it's pretty cool stuff. Everybody knows Jim Banks. He's a great congressman, and now he's a great senator from Indiana. And you might want to say a few words, Jim.
Well, your legacy with Space Force, Mr. President, is already big, but the Golden Dome is going to be an even bigger legacy for our country, and Indiana is going to help you make it.
Right.
The space satellites that are made in Fort Wayne, Indiana by L3 Harris, all the work done at Crane Navy Base in southern Indiana is going to be a big part of it, and Hoosiers are very proud of that. We're proud of you. Thank you very much.
It's going to be a big factor. Thank you, and good luck, and congratulations. You won that race by a lot. That wasn't even a contest, right?
Well, thank you. Thanks to you and all of your support.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Please, go ahead. This is Senator Kramer, and he's one of our best. Can't get any better. Go ahead.
Well, you're very nice, Mr. President, and thanks for this. And I remember the day in your first term when you called, and I was a brand new baby freshman senator on the Armed Services Committee, and you said, I want to have a Space Force. Would you lead the effort on the Senate Armed Services Committee? And I felt so proud thinking that you chose me, only to find out later no one else would do it. But nonetheless, it worked out really, really, really well because North Dakota has some great space assets, and that contribute to that, and to Golden Dome. No surprise that you would be the president that would come along and put the homeland first. And this is just one more example of that. So thanks for this and for allowing me this opportunity. And by the way, let me just add my strong endorsement of General Goodlight's role in leading this. I don't know anybody better, for sure, better equipped to do it than he is.
Everybody said that.
Yeah,
That's
for
great.
sure.
Dan Sullivan, Alaska, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your continued leadership on missile defense. We were talking earlier how in 2019 at the Pentagon, you laid out a speech about the Missile Defense Review that had all these principles on missile defense you articulated then during your first term, and now the Golden Dome is all of that. So you're continuing to lead. We really appreciate it. The Congress is stepping up, as you mentioned right now in the budget reconciliation bill, $25 billion for the Golden Dome. In what Senator Kramer and Senator Banks and I and many others, we're working on I briefed you on this before, sir, on our Golden Dome Act, which we think will have, in terms of legislation that can help cement what you're doing right here, getting the Congress behind it, not just with the funding, but with authorizations. So we're working closely with Secretary Hegseth, General Gutlein, and the whole team. So we're very honored to be here, sir. And Alaska is the cornerstone of missile defense right now in terms of ground-based missile interceptors, in terms of radar systems and track incoming missiles. So my state is honored to continue to play a critical role in all of this and build on it. And we're really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great. Any questions?
And Mr. President, you had mentioned at the beginning of your remarks that this was a campaign promise of yours. Have military commanders asked for this system specifically? Because NORAD had said previously that the current system was adequate. So what does this get the United States
Somebody
that
said the
isn't
current
already
system is
in
adequate.
before?
There really is no current system. We have certain areas of missiles and certain missile defense, but there's no system. We just have some very capable weapons that hopefully we never have to use, but we have some very capable weapons. Now, this is a different league. There's never been.
All right, so folks, you just heard there a little bit from President Trump, among others, about the plans for what is being called Golden Dome, basically an anti-missile system that he's envisioning for the United States. A multi-billion-dollar project with various estimates, but apparently could cost between $161 and $542 billion. He says could be done in 3 years. Congressional Budget Office says it could take more than 2 decades. We want to turn our attention back now to potentials for severe weather. We have Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich joining us right now in the Live Impact News studio. Thanks for being with us, Brad.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. We had just this isolated storm risk, and Vanessa, there's just one storm out there, and it's severe.
Oh, my, okay.
And this is kind of unique storm. So if we take a look at the radar here, I'll show you where it is. We just had a new warning issued for York County, so the first county in our area under a severe thunderstorm warning. That is up until 8:30 tonight, but this is what we call a mini supercell. So supercell thunderstorms, by definition, have rotation in them, but when people hear that, they immediately think tornado, but not all rotating storms produce tornadoes because this rotation is in the mid and upper level part of the storm, not down close to the surface. Now, we're watching it closely in case that should work its way down to the surface, but when you see this kind of kidney bean shape to the storm, and sometimes even a hook, you've heard of a hook echo with a tornado, the hook is telling you that the whole updraft is rotating. And the one thing about rotating storms like this that don't produce tornadoes, they tend to produce pretty significant hail and wind damage. So we had a 1-inch hail report coming out of Gaffney earlier from their emergency manager. This is moving towards Hickory Grove and towards York and McConnell. So this is pushing east. And I just want to widen out for a second just to show you how isolated in nature this is. That is literally the only rain anywhere within 150 miles.
Whoa.
So it's this one tiny storm, and it has really amazing structure. I had a great picture tweeted to me that showed this mothership, kind of like a spaceship. That's the mesocyclone. That's the rotating updraft. It looks like a giant spacecraft.
You're saying like the cloud looks like
yeah,
that.
so when you
Wow.
see that, that's what you're seeing. So let me put a quick track on this, because eventually if you're in Rock Hill, this could be heading your way. So my number one concern with this, honestly, is going to be hail initially. And I'll quickly show you just the velocity data, because you can see a little bit of rotation in there. And the rotation is, remember, the greens are towards the radar, which is back in Greer, South Carolina, so to the west. And the reds are actually away from the radar. So let me grab my, my cursor here. So we're seeing some broad rotation going off in this direction and a little bit this way, but it's not very strong. Those aren't very bright reds and greens. It's just very weak in nature. So the Weather Service and I have been watching this for a while, and right now it's just a rotating storm that's producing hail. So let me quickly put a track on it, because if you have a garage and you have a car, it might be a good time to maybe put that in the garage, or possibly even a carport, because the storms like this tend to produce hail. So let's track this off. It's moving east around 20 miles per hour. So this to give you a rough idea when it's going to arrive. So York, 7:52. Right now it's 7:30 if you're watching on the stream. Rock Hill near the airport around 8:24. Downtown Rock Hill, 8:30. Then Tega Cay, 8:31, and then Riverview, which is over by the Catawba River, closer to 8:30. So that's our main concern with this tonight, Vanessa, would be some hail and wind, even though there could be an isolated tornado. Wind and hail is probably the biggest issue.
Okay. I mean, we were seeing with the satellite and radar that this is part of, it looks like part of a larger system.
Yeah.
And it seems to be mostly, I was just kind of eyeballing it around maybe Tennessee right now.
Yeah, so we've got a tornado on the ground actually in northern Alabama right now in Huntsville, in the Huntsville market. So we have a station there. I know they've been tracking this for a while, and this is heading towards Nashville and Knoxville. So that's the overnight storms that could be heading. So it's really severe now, but the good news for us, I mean, I don't like overnight storms in general because it's hard to warn people, but the one good thing about overnight storms, we lose the heating of the day. So some of the fuel is taken away. The only concern is that it's oftentimes people are asleep and it's hard to get the warning process out. So we expect them to weaken, but the big question with overnight storms is how much. Are they going to weaken to the point where probably not going to produce tornadoes, but damaging straight line winds would still be a chance. And honestly, the biggest thing, as a dog owner, I know you know this, and if you have dogs or kids, overnight thunder is always middle of the night. Kids are in your bed, the dogs are in your bed. If you have sensitive pets or children to thunder, this could be one of those 3 a.m. wake-up calls where it's booming outside and they're waking up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm torn between, do I put the earplugs in or do I leave them out so I can hear my phone go off just in case, the rare situation that it might, have some
Yeah, and
tornado
that's honestly,
activity.
so the mountains, the storms that came through earlier kind of fell apart, so we were watching those, but this is the only one. Let me pull up our Dallas camera, because at one point I had a pretty good view of this. The sun is going to set in an hour, so we might get a nice backlit version of this. So I'm going to pull up our Dallas camera on my system here real quick, and I'll throw it in up for you real quick. I actually aimed it down this way, and when you see this camera, this is over in Gaston County looking south, and so off in the distance you might see like a little hill. That's actually Crowder's Mountain and King's Pinnacle. So we're looking almost directly down 85 now back to the southeast, so you can kind of see how tall that storm is. Off to the left is a little darker because of the rain, and if you look at the very top of the screen, that's actually the top of the anvil. If you see these thunderstorm supercells from a distance, they kind of look like a mushroom cloud or an anvil. That's the thunderstorm. That's literally an explosion up into the atmosphere. And when there's one storm like this, sometimes they look visually really menacing because you see the whole structure of the storm because there's no other clouds or showers around. So that's the storm we're tracking, and it's moving into York County right now.
Okay. For folks who are just joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we are here with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, keeping an eye on what looks to be a quite isolated slice of storm that's just over York County. And so we're just, of course, in the essence of keeping you weather aware and alert to the potentials here, diving in with all that we know about this one little cell here.
You can see, I mean, it's really the only action. Now, I'll widen this out just to show you, because everyone's probably going, where's this going? If you're in Charlotte, this is probably going to slide south of us, but Rock Hill, Fort Mill, Tega Cay, that would be the next area. Then the panhandle of Lancaster County, if it holds together, then western Union County. So this would likely pass just south of the Ballantyne area, maybe just south of Carowinds and Pineville. So that's kind of where it's going. It might start to drift a little further north because what this is actually being triggered on, there's a warm front right in here, and that's actually trying to lift north. And as that lifts north, we might eventually see some additional storms develop. But yeah, so severe thunderstorm warning for York County. If your phone went off with our app, that is up until 8:30, and that is primarily for hail and wind right now. I'm going to quick look at my other source here. Yeah, still rotating, but it's not tightening up near the surface. There's a few products I look at that we can sample this storm in real time, and we call it prob severe, so it gives us an idea of what's going on in the storm. So just to kind of peel back the curtain inside meteorology here and kind of inside baseball, this storm has what we call a prob damaging wind probability of 41%. So that's the highest probability. The probability of tornado in this storm is 6%, and the probability of hail right now is 1%. So wind is the number one. And sometimes those numbers don't really matter to me. What I'm looking at, are they trending up or down? That means the storm's either getting stronger or it's more likely to going to produce wind, hail, or a tornado. At one point, it had a prob tornado probability of almost 30%. So that was pretty high. It's actually come down. So that's a good sign. But the wind threat is definitely up there. So we'll keep an eye on this. It is a very interesting storm from a radar perspective because it looks like one of those classic supercells you would see in Oklahoma or Texas, but it's small. That's why we call it mini. Normally these would be a much bigger storm. Mini supercells are just smaller versions of those bigger storms we see out west.
Now, of course, our reporting here is coming on the heels of some pretty nasty weather out in the Midwest. And of course, as we alluded to, the fact that they're still dealing with issues and potentials here at this very hour. You were telling us earlier, during one of the commercial breaks, that, how May was, this is the time of year. Why is May the peak of tornado season?
Well, it's the perfect combination for severe weather. I think oftentimes people mistakenly just think it's the clash of warm and cold. It's really not the clash of warm and cold. It's more us getting the wintertime jet stream, which is the strongest winds throughout the year. And in the spring, we get the warmest surface temperatures. So we get the overlap of the winter jet stream, which is starting to go back north because it's in the spring, and we're starting to get that warm, humid air at the surface. So anytime you can get really warm, humid air at the ground and get a strong jet stream above that, that's when you get the most violent weather. And the time of years that happens is in the spring and fall because you're transitioning from summer to winter, or in this case, winter to summer. So those transition seasons tend to be worse. And for whatever reason, May in particular, especially for the southern plains, if we think of the biggest tornadoes that have ever occurred in our country, the Joplin tornado, that was in May. The more Oklahoma City tornadoes, all in May. The tornadoes we just had, St. Louis, Kentucky, all in May. It's like this middle and end of May. And in fact, most of my friends that storm chase, this is the time of year they go storm chasing because they know mid to late May is the time you're going to get the most tornadoes out there. Pretty much every day during May, if you go in the middle of the country, you're going to find a storm that has a tornado in it. That's just the time of year we're in.
So I guess, I remember we did that Weather IQ recently where we talked about the enhanced Fujita scale. And so I think back to some of the images, and I keep going back to St. Louis, although I know that there have been so many areas that were hard hit in recent days. But we were on the air here Friday night, here on Live Impact News, giving folks a look at all the damage on the ground, courtesy of our news partners out there. And I mean, I just couldn't help but think, all the homes that we saw collapse, piles of rubble, piles of bricks, all of that damage plays a role, right, into how that tornado is eventually rated. So, I mean, I felt like, to me, seeing the damage, that would have been a higher rating.
Yeah, and so probably the reason EF3 is considered significant and above, and that is a lot of damage for an EF3 tornado. But one of the things that goes into the enhanced Fujita scale is the type of structure. If you look at those buildings, if those are older buildings that weren't as well built as they are now, they know that takes less wind to bring those down. So the type of structure matters quite a bit. And to me, that's an older part of St. Louis, which tells me that those homes probably weren't as well built. And so the brick facades coming off, EF3, it's still, that's 150 mile per hour winds. So that's impressive. But what really blows your mind is we had two other storms during this outbreak, one in Marion, Illinois, and one in London, Kentucky, Somerset area. Both of those have preliminarily been rated EF4. So
Wow.
those are, I mean, you're talking 190, 195 mile an hour winds. And the damage there was not only structures, but scouring of the ground and debarking of trees, which is another indicator they look at. When you're stripping all the bark off a tree, that takes an incredible amount of wind.
That's unbelievable. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to picture that. So scouring of the ground, that means
That
what?
means literally the wind was digging dirt off the ground and making a gouge in the earth. And usually that's occurring from the wind and from the debris being picked up. And actually, in a tornado, the debris is actually the most dangerous thing. It becomes like a giant drill bit with the debris, and it actually starts gouging the ground. The tree damage, I think, was in the Daniel Boone wildlife area there. There's a 1.5 mile wide path of trees just completely obliterated, and it's pretty stunning to see. We actually could see the tornado track on satellite imagery because it left such a clear mark on the landscape. So these are some of the most powerful tornadoes we have. We have not had an EF5 in the United States, I believe, since 2008. El Reno tornado, I think, was the last one. No, that was not right. I'm sorry. It was the Moore, Oklahoma tornado. That was the last one. So there hasn't been one since then. And it's not because there hasn't been a lot of tornadoes. It's just there hasn't been one that has caused the damage to meet that threshold.
Yeah.
We're much better at determining the speed of these tornadoes now, with engineers now going out there and actually surveying this damage.
Yeah. I suppose this is quite a hypothetical question, but I think about the fact how we talk about how storms seem to be getting stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, is this eventually going to lead to, I mean, I know you said we haven't had an EF5
Yep.
in a while, so seemingly we haven't needed to cross that threshold yet, but would we eventually, you think, change up the EF scale to deal with that, or just add
Probably
more numbers?
not, because the scale, I mean, it takes a lot to get that speed. There's a theoretical limit to how strong winds can actually be.
Yeah.
Because you can't physically produce winds that high. The strongest winds we know that have occurred are 300 and about 18 miles an hour, and that was the Moore 1999 tornado. The only reason we know that is Doppler radar on the back of a truck was able to detect, get this, a piece of debris flying around at 318 miles an hour. So I have to correct myself. The last one, I think, was 2013. That was in Oklahoma City, so that was the last one. So it's been a while since we've had an EF5. But to answer your question, I think what's more likely is that we'll have tornadoes occurring more in other parts of the year and other parts of the country that they don't normally occur. One of the things we've noticed more is what we call cool season tornadoes. I mentioned earlier, like the perfect setups in May. Well, part of the problem, people, I say this a lot, when it gets really warm in December and January, February, people are like, yay. I always worry about that because we have the winter jet stream and it's warm. You're basically getting May conditions in the middle of winter. And so you don't want to see warm weather in the winter because the winds are so much stronger above our heads, and that's when we can get violent tornadoes. And because the days are naturally shorter then, because the sun angle, you're going to have more nighttime tornadoes because they occur that time of year. So, and the other thing is people just don't take storms seriously in the winter. We run into this communication issue where if it's not technically tornado season, people may not be paying attention to the weather at all and thinking, oh, well, how could there be a tornado in December or January, February?
Yeah.
We get a lot more of those now.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. We're coming up close to about 15 minutes, so away from the top of the hour. I believe one of the alerts was going to expire, I think, in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's for Cherokee County, so
Okay.
that should be coming up in 2 minutes, and then York County is up till 8:30, which is actually pretty long. I would be surprised if they don't extend that. So for everyone just wondering where the storm is, it's basically in the western part of central York County. So between York and McConnell's on 321, that's the area it's heading. If you're in York, Clover, this is going to pass to your south. If you're in Tega Cay, Fort Mill, Rock Hill, it's still probably an hour away. Maybe even less than that, depending on the speed. It's moving about 20 miles an hour. The good news is I don't see it strengthening much right now, so it looks like it's staying roughly the same intensity. So far, no tornadoes, but there has been 1-inch hail in Cherokee County from the emergency manager. That was over in the Gaffney area, about 1 mile southeast of Gaffney. No damage reports other than that, just hail so far.
Okay, but definitely a good reason to get the car in the garage, as you say.
Yeah, because 1 inch is, I wouldn't take my chances, but the threshold, and you talk to most insurance adjusters, and just from my personal experience, golf ball size hail is about the size where you start getting damage. And it's also the time where people don't really realize it until the next day, and you see your car at an angle and you realize there's all these little dents all over it. and your roof, you don't always know there's a problem until the next rain, and then it starts leaking, and it's because the divots or the damage to the shingles was done by the previous hailstorm. So if you get something that resembles golf ball size hail or ping pong ball, that's about 1.5 inches, inch and 3/4 diameter, it's probably a good idea just to call your insurance adjuster, say, hey, come check my roof and check my car, because that's kind of where we start seeing damage to vehicles and homes.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you're going to be here
Yep.
through the evening, even into the overnight. So thank you for doing that. Can you lay out for our viewers here, I guess, your plan of action for the next few hours? What are you watching? What are the timelines here, just so folks have an idea?
So other than this isolated storm right now, which it's 7:45, this will probably be kind of with us till about 9, maybe 10 o'clock. So we'll watch this. Maybe we'll see an additional one try to develop north of there. It looks like there is one around Kings Mountain trying to get going. But these are going to be the isolated ones and really not the main action. This is kind of just an evening precursor. Overnight, those storms over in Tennessee, they will get into the mountains around midnight to 2 a.m.
Okay.
And then move down through the Piedmont 2 to 4 a.m. and then the Sandhills after that. We're more concerned with the mountains because even if they were to weaken, they're going to be stronger west than they are east. So we'll have more time for them to weaken as they get to the Piedmont, but the mountains, they could still be strong. And the other thing about thunderstorms, even when they collapse, sometimes they push out a bunch of wind at the very end. It's like their last gasp. As the storm collapses, a whole bunch of air rushes out. And so you can still get damaging winds as the storm is falling apart. Because everything that's gone up into the atmosphere has to come back down at some point, and sometimes that happens at the very end. So for the mountains and foothills in particular, midnight to 2 a.m., be ready for some really strong winds and probably some pretty heavy rain and lightning. And for everybody else, I think that the thunder might be the one thing everybody hears overnight more than anything.
Yeah. All right. Brad, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
stopping by. Come back again
Yes.
whenever. And of course, especially tonight, if you
Yeah.
see something else, please hop back in. We thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
to show us what you're looking at.
Yeah,
on
and
your
if
system.
you guys see pictures or have reports, please send them our way. We always like to pass those along. It does help people downstream kind of know what's heading their way, and I can always pass those along to the Weather Service, again, help them issue better warnings going forward.
Yeah, awesome. All right, folks, thank you so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News, and thank you to Brad. We will, of course, be keeping you up to date with the very latest on the weather front. As we mentioned, too, we're also watching several big headlines. We want to send you back now to this briefing with President Trump regarding Golden Dome. It's that anti-missile, it's an intercepting system that he has envisioned for the U.S. We are in the midst of a description of the system itself with officials. Looks like Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is there as well. So we'll bring you back to that briefing from earlier today.
Review
Right.
that had all these principles on missile defense that you articulated then during your first term, and now the Golden Dome is all of that. So you're continuing to lead. We really appreciate it. You know, the Congress is stepping up, as you mentioned right now in the budget reconciliation bill, $25 billion for the Golden Dome. In what Senator Kramer and Senator Banks and I and many others, we're working on our, and I briefed you on this before, sir, on our Golden Dome Act, which we think will have, in terms of legislation that can help cement what you're doing right here, getting the Congress behind it, not just with the funding, but with authorizations. So we're working closely with Secretary Hegseth, General Gutlein, the whole team. So we're very honored to be here, sir. And you know, Alaska is the cornerstone of missile defense right now in terms of ground-based missile
Right.
interceptors,
That's right.
in terms of radar systems and track incoming missiles. So my state is honored to continue to play a critical role in all of this and build on it. And
Right.
we're really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. President, you had mentioned at the beginning of your remarks that this was a campaign promise of yours. Have military commanders asked for this system specifically? Because NORAD had said previously that the current system was adequate. So what does this get the United States
Somebody
that
said the
isn't
current
already
system is
in
adequate.
before?
There really is no current system. We have certain areas of missiles and certain missile defense, but there's no system. We just have some very capable weapons that hopefully we never have to use, but we have some very capable weapons. Now, this is a different league. There's never been anything like this. This is something that's going to be very protective. I think you can rest assured there'll be nothing like this. Nobody else is capable of building it either.
Was
Yeah,
it something
please,
that
go ahead.
military commanders asked you for? Did they ask you to do this?
Well, let me put it differently. I suggested it, and they all said, "We love the idea, sir." It's the way it's got to be, right? But they want it, and they wanted it badly once it was suggested. I don't know if they ever thought they would be lucky enough to have it, but we were able to get it done, and we have all the funding, so pretty much tucked away. I think most people feel it's very important to have. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you first announced this idea, critics said it would be prohibitively expensive, potentially ineffective, and could trigger an arms race in space. What do you say to those critics about that?
Well, they're wrong. It's about as close to perfect as you can have in terms of real production. I told you Canada wants to be a part of it, which be, fairly small expansion, but we'll work with them on pricing. We'll be dealing with them on pricing. They know about it very much. They've asked to be a part of it, actually. They've asked us to be a part of it. I think it's something that is great. If you can afford to do it, and we can afford to do it. We took in $5.1 trillion in the last 4 days in the Middle East. And when you think about it, this is a tiny fraction of that. But we make it all here. We're going to make it all here. We have, I will tell you, an adversary told me, a very big adversary told me the most brilliant people in the world are Silicon Valley. He said, we cannot duplicate him. We can't. This was somebody that I won't tell you who it is, but you'd be amazed. We have the most brilliant minds in the world doing this kind of thing, the equipment, the space, the computers, everything. But I said that we just can't duplicate what you have there in Silicon Valley. We never have been able to. And this is a very strong group of people and very strong minds, but they can't. So we have things that nobody else can have. You see what we've done helping Israel with that. You probably wouldn't have in Israel. They launched probably 500 missiles altogether, and I think 1/2 of a missile got through, and that was only falling to the ground as scrap metal. It's pretty amazing, and this is in terms of technology far advanced from that system.
And just one follow-up on the adversaries. Have you addressed Russia's ventures in space with a space-based nuclear weapon and told Putin to stop in your conversations with him?
We haven't discussed it, but at the right time we will. Yeah.
Mr. President, with the goal of keeping Americans safe with this, can you talk about the timeline? How long will this take to complete?
We think it's going to be about a little bit less than 3 years, and we'll have a big phase-in very early. We're starting immediately with $25 billion. It'll cost about $175 billion completed, but we think in 2.5 to 3 years.
Are you confident that you can get the funding needed from Congress quickly?
Well, it's amazing how easy this one is to fund. Some funding is tough and some is easy. When we say we're going to save everyone's lives in a crazy world, it seems to be very easy to get. Yeah, we've already spoken to everybody we have to speak to. Everybody's in, I would say, Dan, everybody's in line here, right?
Yes, sir. $25 billion is a down payment in the budget reconciliation bill right now.
Yeah, so I think people actually love it.
Mr. President, on Russia, are you worried about the reports on a military buildup along the borders towards Finland and Norway?
No, I don't worry about that at all. They're going to be very safe. Those are two countries that are going to be very safe.
And the secondly, sir, if I may, Volodymyr Zelensky is saying today that he's hoping for you to impose new sanctions on Russia. Are you considering that?
Well, that's going to be my determination. That's going to be nobody else's determination. We'll see how Russia behaves. We see what's going to happen. We have a pretty critical time right now. I had a talk yesterday for 2.5 hours with President Putin, as you know. I also spoke to all of the European, or to many of them, leaders, but they were representing the whole. And I think we had very good conversations yesterday. Please.
Thanks, Mr. President. What companies have asked to be involved in building this system, and have you decided on who will be building it?
Yeah, I think I'll let you answer that. You can mention some of yours from Alaska's involved, and Alaska's a big part of it because locationally they're sort of perfect. I think it's your first line of defense in certain instances, and Kevin will tell you that his state's involved. But honestly, Georgia's going to be very big. Florida's going to be very big. They're all going to be very big. Jim, do you want to talk about Indiana?
Yeah, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I live, we make all the space satellites at L3 Harris. Across the board, we're the top manufacturing state in the country. By the way, the tariffs have been very good for auto manufacturing in
They've been
Indiana.
so good.
But this is going to be really good for the defense industry in my state. And there's so much money involved here. There are going to be a lot of American companies involved in making the Golden Dome
You
possible.
might also say, you're talking about the tariffs, here's some of the biggest auto plants in the world moving into Indiana only for one reason, maybe two reasons, November 5th and the tariffs, okay?
Yes, sir.
But the tariffs have driven tremendous business into this country, but you have one of the biggest in the world being
The
built.
Honda Civics,
Right.
the new Honda Civic made in Indiana. GM has added jobs. Eli Lilly moving pharmaceutical manufacturing from China to the United States, $27 billion. You go on and on with good news in Indiana and across the country because of the tariffs.
Our country was cold as ice a year ago, and now we have the hottest country in the world. This is the hottest country in the world, nobody even close. If you look at even this last trip that I made, the respect that is paid to our country. We've went from being laughed at all over the world, and now we're the hottest country in the world by far. Dan, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I think when you look at the system that you've laid out, it's an idea in your executive order of a layered defense. So you have initial ground-based missile interceptors, which are made by some of the big defense companies, Lockheed, Martin, Raytheon. But the beauty of your vision, Mr. President, is that it's layered, it's open architecture, and it goes up into space. So this is going to be some of the new defense tech companies that are very interested in it and can bring missile defense at a cost that I don't think, you said it, Mr. President, is unimaginable in terms of how much lower the cost is. So it's all across the board in terms of companies. Senator Kramer and I just met with a bunch of them last week that are interested in this. And you said it earlier, Mr. President, our technology sector is head and shoulders above any other place in the world, and they're going to be a key part of this, and I think that's why it makes it so exciting.
Mr. President, I think one of the things that's, and you alluded to this, the new autonomous space age defense ecosystem is more about Silicon Valley than it is about big metal, right? And so what's exciting about this is it makes it available to everybody to participate, to compete. Big companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, but General Gutlein is the perfect person, again, to sort all that out because he understands how it has to work together ultimately.
And Pete, maybe we'll close with you. We've been discussing this for a long time. Pete and I used to discuss it when I was going to go on a show that he did very well and had tremendous ratings, but all he wanted to talk about was the military. He didn't want to talk about anything else. We used to talk about this. How about you closing it out?
Yes, sir. I mean, like I said, without your vision, willing to say and do things when other people wanted to look away and pretend like the threat didn't exist, or be focused on foreign adventurism, some other threat that we've been told is affecting us. When you looked at the data, sir, from Russia to the Communist Chinese and their capabilities, what they're trying to do to supersede us and threaten us, how do we find the best innovators, the best military leaders, the best companies, tech companies? You mentioned open architecture, that's exactly right. So multiple companies can pour into this, sir. It's a layered defense, so if you miss at one, you catch at the next. And it integrates existing technologies that can speak to each other, so it moves quickly while also investing in further ranging space-based interceptors. So our enemies, our adversaries are going to pay a lot of attention to this, just like they have to President Trump from day one. So you're defending the homeland, defending the American people. It's going to benefit my kids and grandkids, all of ours in this room. So thank you for your leadership. We're going to charge ahead as fast as we can.
Very good. Great job, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Elon Musk be a part of this, Mr. President? Thank you, Press.
No cuts. No cuts to Medicare.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.
No cuts to
More, guys.
Medicare.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you very much.
Keep going. Thank you, everybody.
All right, folks, live Impact News on WCNC Plus. The president's briefing wrapping up regarding Golden Dome. As we mentioned, a multi-billion-dollar plan to basically install this anti-missile interception type of system. And he says could take 3 years to install that. More on that, of course, to come as we learn more about the project. Meantime, we wanted to bring it back closer to home and talk about the big Charlotte matter, and that is the animal shelter. So we've discussed at length the fact that the shelter has been at capacity multiple times, time and time again, and pretty much on a consistent basis, probably now for, I'd say maybe 2 years, 2.5 years at this point straight. But there is a way for you to support the shelter. And we talked about adopting and fostering, but here's yet another way that we want to share with you now. Let's bring in Cody Trespalacios with CMPD Animal Care and Control. Thank you so much for joining us, Cody.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Well, and it's great to have you because you are very crucial in putting together this inaugural event for CMPD Animal Care and Control that's going to kick off this weekend. So this is Steps for Shelter Pets. And so this is happening at Pearl Street Park through the morning and into the afternoon. And this is going to be a way, right, for folks to get involved with the shelter and also directly support some of the services that you provide for the animals, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. So it's going to be 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Pearl Street Park, and it's, like you said, Steps for Shelter Pets. It's going to be our first annual awareness walk. The plan is to have the community come together and collectively walk 10,600 laps of the park. Each lap is going to be representing one of the animals that came into our shelter in 2024. So that's a little over 10,000 animals in just the 1 year, and that's what the shelter's going up against year after year, and we need all of that support all the time. If it was just that number as the animals instead of the laps, like that's what the staff is trying to keep up with. So that's why we need that extra volunteer support. We need that foster support. And then generally, whenever I have people come in and they find out about that number, they're eager to help us take care of that many animals. So the plan is to get something that's really community forward facing and have more people learn about the shelter so they can help us out.
Yeah, I mean, that number is staggering to think about, more than 10,000 animals coming into Charlotte Shelter every single year. And I mean, we talk about this time and time again here on Live Impact News and on WCNC Charlotte, the fact that the shelter was built at a time when the city's, population was probably about half of what it is now, if not less than half. We continue to have folks move here, which of course means more animals moving here. So really just important for folks to know that the shelter needs some help right now, and there are ways to help out. So I saw that the fundraising goal was about $53,000. Is that right, for just this event on Saturday?
Yeah, that's the other part of it, is it's an awareness event to kind of get people up to date on what's going on with the shelter. And then on top of that, we're hoping that we can get $5 donations per lap. So that'd be $5 per animal, and that's $53,000 total. And that money is going to go straight back into trying to keep those animals as taken care of as they can while they're with us. It's going to be going into foster supplies like crates and leashes, slip leads for whenever we have volunteers coming in to walk at the shelter, treats to give them something while they're there during the day, because most of those animals are just waiting in the kennels until they have either a volunteer come take them out or a foster or rescue come and pull them. So anything that they can get treats wise or Kongs wise is going to help them stay as calm as they can until somebody can help them out long term.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important for these animals to have this type of enrichment. I know that's like the term that y'all use at the shelter, enrichment, because it kind of keeps them, I guess, as sane as possible, which we love.
Right.
We love to make sure that those dogs and cats are in the best shape possible for whenever their forever home does come. Any other additions to this event that folks need to know about? Will there be, for example, adoptable dogs on site? Will there be foster dogs that people can check out and see if they want to take them home and do a staycation?
For sure. So we're going to have our fosters showing up as well, and we'll be doing foster dog call outs as the event goes. We're going to have between 20 and 30 vendors out there during the day, a couple of food trucks, and then again, just anybody from the community that wants to show up and help out however they can. A lot of it's just going to be giving that extra information to people on how they can help it, whether it's adopting, whether it's joining the volunteer program, coming in as a foster, or just taking all that information and passing it along to people who can help in a different way. Because a lot of people want to help, but every household's kind of limited. But if you can pass that information along, you're going to give us new people that we can reach out to help us continue helping these animals as they come in.
I mean, speaking of spreading the word, I've not kept this a secret. I've told folks here on Live Impact News and also on air on WCNC Charlotte the fact that I am a shelter volunteer. So, I've seen how the program works, and I feel like the volunteer ranks have grown a whole lot since I started a couple years ago. And I felt like, that a lot of that was word of mouth. I think people telling a friend, hey, they need help. This is the program. This is how it works. And I mean, it's a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of satisfaction that folks get either from coming to the shelter, walking the dogs, playing with the cats, feeding the cats. I know sometimes y'all have bottle babies, and even fostering. So, I mean, I know that you've seen the ranks growing,
For
right?
sure. And I mean, everything involving the volunteer program is pretty close to my heart. I started as a volunteer at a shelter down in Florida. That's how I got into animal sheltering in general, is just volunteering. And I volunteered a little, then I volunteered a lot. Then I decided to just make a career out of it. And then we moved from Florida to here, and I continued to do that and managed to get my dream spot involved with just the volunteer program all the time. And as a volunteer, like, any break that those dogs or cats can get out of their kennels socializing with people makes such a difference. If they're stuck there day after day, week after week without any of that socializing, it really takes a mental toll on them. So anybody that's able to join that program and come in and help us out, you'd be making a world's difference for those animals.
Yeah. I mean, we have a great volunteer team. I'm not really even just talking about myself. I'm not talking about myself at all. I'm talking about,
Oh, I know.
those folks who are there every single day, hours. And I mean, like I said, having walked dogs, having fostered, there is a really big satisfaction.
It's a very dedicated team.
that
and you're right,
comes
it's
from
grown a
that.
whole bunch the last few years. We went from around 200 to now about 450. But there's even with that many, we always need more people to help out, because every day, just in our kennels, we're going to have between 150 to 200 dogs that would love to get a break from their kennels, and that's just what we have on site. We tend to have another 200 to 300 in foster, and there is a big overlap between the people that are fostering and the people that are volunteering. Either they start as volunteers and then they find some dog that they managed to get out a few times and want to get them away from the kennels for a while, or fosters will realize that if they come in and volunteer, then they can get kind of better information on dogs at the shelter before they end up taking them home. So
yeah. Well, so for folks right now watching on Live Impact News here, we do have the graphic up for you now with some of the information about this event. So as you can see, Saturday, it's going to be from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Steps for Shelter Pets at Pearl Street Park. You can learn more at animals.cmpd.org. We also have an article on our website, WCNC.com, and inside our WCNC Charlotte mobile app. Anything folks need to know about bringing dogs of their own? Are you allowed to bring a dog to the walk?
For sure, we're making it. It's a dog-friendly event. It will be, fingers crossed, a very busy park. So you do want to be careful with who you're bringing out there, because we're going to have a lot of people and a lot of kids and a lot of other dogs out there. So if you have kind of a scared dog, that might not be the time for them to come out and socialize. But outside of that, another big one is just that the shelter does stay full. So that event is on Saturday, but between now and Saturday, we're pretty tight on kennel space. So anybody that's ever considered fostering or adopting or joining in on our staycation or daycation programs, where you can come and kind of check a dog out for a few days, now would be a great time to do that. A lot of the dogs there are really counting on that the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, it's so heartbreaking to see, the capacity situation time and time again. It sounds like there's going to be some resources, from the city. We've publicized that. We have articles, by the way, if you want to kind of look into some of the projects that have been proposed to help with capacity and also resources with the shelter. But you can learn more, by the way, if you go to that website to animals.cmpd.org, not just about this event. You can also pull up the whole list website where you can see the adoptable dogs, which, by the way, if they're adoptable, they're generally fosterable too.
Oh, yeah.
Staycationable, all that stuff. So
yeah.
All right. Cody, anything else you want to leave us with before we say goodbye?
Those are the big ones. I'm hoping to see a whole bunch of the community show up on Saturday. Again, this is our first annual walk. It's been kind of a big event for me. It's something I've wanted to do for a few years, because I started as a volunteer. I'm very community focused on that being the answer to how the shelter gets to a point of stability. So if you're even a little curious about anything involving animal sheltering in our area, please come out and join us, walk a few laps, meet some vendors, and meet all the volunteers and fosters that are going to be out there.
Wonderful. Cody Tres-Palacios with CMPD Animal Care and Control, thank you so much for being with us tonight
thanks.
and letting us know about Steps for Shelter Pets.
Thank you.
All right. folks. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Just a reminder, of course, one of the big headlines for us this evening is on the weather front. So not only for our area, asking folks to be weather aware. Of course, we had Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich on our stream just a little while ago, keeping us abreast of a little bit of a storm cell in the York County area. He's going to be popping in as necessary throughout our stream to keep us updated. But we have been keeping an eye on one of our affiliates in Huntsville, Alabama. Brad actually tipped us off to this earlier during our stream, the fact that there was a tornado that hit the Huntsville area today, and our affiliate out there, our sister station, has been in continuous coverage with this situation. It looks like we're seeing, as far as, just taking a quick look at the stream, some damage reports. And Jeb, our producer here, you were listening in on their stream. Is it still going?
Yep.
Okay. And I wanted to point this out too as folks are watching this. It sounded like the station actually took a power hit, right?
Yeah, based on what I was able to hear right now, we'll be getting some rudimentary coverage because they've lost most of their systems and are working to try to get them back up. We don't know if it was a direct lightning strike, but we do know that a very substantial power loss within the last hour. So what we're watching right now is them in real time trying to get their systems up so they can provide coverage for the people who need it, because those storms are still very active.
Yeah. All right. So just a little caveat as you're watching here. And with that, we do want to turn you to our coverage from Huntsville, Alabama for just a bit now as they cover the aftermath of a tornado.
That we have of the down power lines out in Athens. Yep, that's another new image that we have there. We can maximize that screen, please, just so people can see just how damaging this storm is. Maximize that image for me, please. Again, just to give you an idea of where this is happening, this is off of Lucas Ferry Road from earlier when that storm was moving through. And I want to go back over again some of the damages that we've seen. Down power lines in in Grisby Lane off of Browns Ferry Road, Sanderford Road West. We also saw some wall clouds forming in the areas of Buc-ee's. This is according to the National Weather Service that we've seen earlier. Car versus utility pole on Sanderson. Now, folks, I saw off of Memorial Parkway when we had that live footage that people were out on the road. This storm has spanned across the Tennessee Valley. You need to be at home right now. At home, being in your safe space is where we need to be because this storm is moving across the Tennessee Valley throughout the night. We're constantly getting tornado warnings that are coming in each county. So make sure that you are at home or in your safe space. We're in this together. We're going to get through it, but still stay safe where you are at home. I mean, I will mention it again that here at Fox 54, we experienced our own power outage. Thankfully, we were able to come back up and inform you all on what's going on. I myself at one point had to leave the studio and go into our safe space, the women's restroom, to stay safe. So hunker down with wherever you are and continue to stay safe. And right now we are going to continue to keep you updated on air and online with our severe weather coverage. I do want to mention that we've seen some golf ball sized hail. We've seen a lot of damage happening across the Tennessee Valley. And look, this is going to stretch for quite a while, and we want to keep you safe. Our Fox 54 Weather Impact Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman, along with our meteorologist Emily Owen, is going to keep you updated. And in just a moment, I'm going to toss things back over to them. I will toss it back over to Jordan. Jordan will keep us updated on what's happening. Jordan, what is on your radar right now?
Hey, thank you so much, Kenesha. Very much appreciate that. Yeah, continuing to watch tornado warnings that continue to be in effect across the Tennessee Valley. As of right now, tornado warnings are going to be in effect for at least the next 15 minutes. It appears that I've been told, okay, we have. Emily, I'm going to have you just go to the back and control the graphics from whatever monitor controls graphics, because we have graphics. So I'm going to have you go wherever you can go to control the graphics. I don't really care where it is. Just go somewhere that you can control the graphics. So this is current information. So we have current information. Kenesha asks what's on the radar, and magically the radar starts working. So we're going to continue to watch this. Emily is getting set up, and she is going to control my radar for me, and we're going to attempt to talk about what's going on. Now, you're not going to be able to see me, but you are going to be able to hear me. We do still have a number of tornado warnings that are in effect across the Tennessee Valley. Emily is hopping on our graphic system right now, and she is going to keep me updated in the best way she can. So what you're looking at here is a tornado warning just to the northeast, of Maysville, heading into Holly Tree. If you're in Holly Tree, you're going to need to be in your tornado safe place. We're going to continue a tornado warning for northwestern Jackson and northeastern Madison counties. That's going to run until 7:30. So still about another 15 minutes on the tornado warning that you currently see. But at the same time, we do have another tornado warning in effect. We do have another tornado warning that is in effect. This is going to be for Morgan and Limestone and Madison counties. Now, this does include Owens Crossroads. So if you're in Owens Crossroads, I want you to be in your tornado safe place. My wife just texted me a photo. She is, in fact, in her tornado safe place, and she is continuing to monitor the weather incredibly closely. So we're going to continue to watch this situation unfold. As soon as it's going to take Emily just a quick second to get the graphics up and running, but once she does, and then we will be able to move about the radar. But for the time being, we do not have the ability to move about the radar. I'm kind of wondering, yeah, let's take that video. We apparently have video of a tornado forming out of Limestone County. So this is excellent video. So you can kind of see that, and this is in Limestone County, near Newby. I have some friends that live on that road, near Newby Road. Again, you can really very clearly see that tornado dropping down. Now, this looks well off into the distance. There's a lot of new build communities out in this area, out in this particular part of Athens. So it's something that we're going to continue to watch very, very closely. Again, this fantastic video of a potentially very destructive tornado. And again, it looks like this is out in Athens that we were looking at. And I would imagine that video is from a little while ago. And I'm also kind of wondering if the graphics have stopped updating once again. But we're going to continue to watch this and follow this situation very, very closely. Again, we have a couple of different areas of interest here. Emily is controlling the graphics.
They work here, they just don't work on our monitors.
So it would appear the graphics that you see on television are currently not working. Let's go back to the Parkway, if you will, please, for just a quick second. So we're going to continue to watch this very, very closely. Again, we're talking about an area just to the north of Pleasant Grove. So if you're in Pleasant Grove, I want you to be in your tornado safe place. If you know anybody just to the northeast of Maysville, you also need to be in your tornado safe place. So we're going to continue to watch this. We're going to continue to watch this unfold over the next several minutes. It looks like we have canceled a tornado warning for Limestone County. So Limestone County no longer included in the tornado warning, but it does appear we're going to continue the tornado warning for Madison and Morgan counties. That's going to run until 7:30. Apparently, there are reports out of Jackson County of a tornado on the ground near Gurley, headed toward Skyline. I don't believe we have any cameras there, but there is a report There is a report of a tornado on the ground near Gurley, and that would be heading towards Skyline. So as soon as we can, we're going to take you out there and see what we can get confirmed. So this is not a fantastic shot. Don't see anything in this shot, but we can keep this shot here and kind of see what happens. I'm also not entirely sure what direction this looks. So but we are going to continue to pay attention to this. But apparently, there is a tornado on the ground near Gurley. Now that is a report from the Jackson County EMA, so a trusted, reliable source and something that we're going to continue to watch. So again, if you have the ability to safely text us weather photos and videos, you can do that. The number is 256-382-2692. Apparently, we can further confirm that there is potentially a tornado on the ground north of Gurley based on the amount of debris that is being lofted into the air. So again, that's something that we also want to continue to watch and something that we want to continue to pay attention to. So what we're looking at is a couple of different dangerous situations this evening. We have potentially a confirmed tornado on the ground just to the north of Gurley heading towards Skyline. But then at the same time, we also have a tornado warning, and it looks like the most intense part of that is currently sitting over Triana. So if you're in Triana, you need to be in your tornado safe place. If you're in Owens Crossroads, you're also going to need to be in your tornado safe places. We're talking about yet another potential tornado. Rotation looking quite good there near Triana. So we're going to continue to watch that. Going to continue to monitor that. For just a second, I think I'm going to turn things over to meteorologist Emily Owen and let her discuss what she sees on radar.
Yeah, Jordan, like we've been talking about, first and foremost, we have no control right now over our Fox 54 radar. It's not updating like it should because we did take we took a direct hit with power outages earlier, so we're still trying to recover from that. But what we're going to do is just kind of let you hear our voices, and we can control it, you know, behind the scenes. It's just not what we're able to show you. So we're going to keep it on the Parkway cam. But like Jordan mentioned earlier, we've got 2 tornado warnings right now. One that we are watching specifically in Jackson County that has, I think we got confirmation from Jackson County EMA that there was a tornado on the ground in Gurley, and it is headed towards Skyline. So Holly Tree, you need to be in your safe space right now. If you know anybody that's in Princeton, you need to tell them to get in their safe space as well. Pleasant Grove, so go ahead and be in your safe space because this is tagged as a confirmed tornado. Now, we did see a little bit of a debris signature earlier with this as well, so that's good indication that we did have a potential tornado on the ground. We've got a lot of tornado warnings going on right now, and we're trying to push out, you know, the best that we can for you without having visuals. It looks like we just got a new tornado warning. Let's see, this is going to be until 8 o'clock. This is for Jackson County, northeastern DeKalb County, and southeastern Franklin County in Middle Tennessee. So Franklin County on the western side of the Tennessee Valley, No severe weather at the moment. We are specifically watching for Jackson County, DeKalb County, and southeastern Franklin County in southern Middle Tennessee. So we do have a radar confirmed tornado. So you need to go ahead and be in your safe space. Skyline, Stevenson, Bridgeport, Skyline, it's going to be in your location within about 3 minutes. So if you live in Skyline, if you know anybody who lives in Skyline, you need to tell them that they need to be in their safe place immediately. That's going to be the lowest level of your home, whether that's a basement, whether you have a storm shelter. If you don't have either of those, your most interior room of your home away from exterior walls and windows is also going to be a safe space. Have some sort of a head covering. You could pull the mattress off your bed, a bicycle helmet, items like that. So Skyline need to be in your safe space. Stevenson, it looks like it's going to hit you around 7:40, and then it'll be over Bridgeport around 7:55. So once again, we've got a new tornado warning that's going to be in effect for Jackson County. This is in northeastern Alabama. We've got northeastern DeKalb County here in Alabama. And then, of course, southeastern Franklin County. That's in southern Middle Tennessee. This is going to run until 8 o'clock. This is a radar confirmed tornado. Now, back to I think we had a tornado warning. We still have a tornado warning that's in effect, and it is still radar indicated. This is going to be for Madison and Morgan. It looks like it was located over the Redstone Arsenal about 3 minutes ago. It's moving to the east at 45 miles per hour. So Owens Crossroads need to be in your safe space. Probably would go ahead and tell people within Hampton Cove, Lacey Springs, Farley, Whitesburg to be in your safe space. This tornado warning is going to run until 7:30. So we've still got about 6 more minutes left with that tornado warning. Once again, that's for Madison and Morgan. And then we've got the tornado warning that's radar confirmed until 8 o'clock. This is for Jackson County, DeKalb County, and Franklin County in southern Middle Tennessee. So as of right now, we don't have any new information in regards to those storms. So it looks like the tornado warning that was in effect for northwestern Jackson and northeastern Madison counties, that's going to go ahead and expire at 7:30. Now, a tornado warning will remain in effect for southwestern Madison and east central Morgan counties. So that's also going to be, I think this one actually still goes until 7:30 as well. Yeah, so 7:30, moving about 45 miles per hour. This was the one that I was talking about earlier. Owens Crossroads, Huntsville, Hampton Cove, Lacey Springs, Farley, Whitesburg need to be in your safe space. And then we've got the eastern side of North Alabama has a tornado warning in Jackson County, DeKalb County, and Franklin County once again in southern Middle Tennessee. That's going to run until 8 o'clock, and that one is radar confirmed. Yeah, let's take the Green Mountain camera, just kind of see what's going on up there if we can get it. So yeah, we've got a lot of rain still happening up there, but there's really, it's a hard visualization right now just because it is so rainy and it is so windy. It's blowing rain droplets right onto that camera. So that, this is what we're going to be dealing with for the next couple of minutes here as these storms continue to move through. So I'm still tracking, radar behind the scenes. I really wish that we could get it up for you guys, but like I said, we took a power hit earlier and it has messed our graphics system up. So we are doing the best that we can to get information out to you guys just with our voices. So Owens Crossroads would go ahead and be in your safe space. Paint Rock need to be in your safe space because this storm looks like it is going to head in your direction as well. You're not in the polygon right now, but Paint Rock, I probably would go ahead and get in my safe space just to be on the safe side. And then we've got that one storm that's headed straight towards Skyline. Looks like it's going to go over Stevenson, going to pass over High Top as well. It looks like it's going to be staying to the north of Hollywood. It'll be staying to the north of Scottsboro as well. It looks like it's to the north of Pleasant Groves right now, so that's where that area of rotation that we're watching is currently located. It's taking an east track at about 45 miles per hour. So like I mentioned, Skyline, Stevenson, Bridgeport, High Top need to be in your safe space right now. And then back down to the Madison County storm, Owens Crossroads need to be in your safe space. New Hope, I would be in my safe space just for a precaution. And then Paint Rock and Woodville probably would go ahead and be in my safe space right now as well, because this particular storm that does have a little bit of rotation within it is going to be headed within your direction. So I would rather be safe than sorry for this particular storm. Now, we just did get a message that the rotation is starting to tighten a little bit, which is what I can see right now. Like I said, I apologize that we can't show you this. We're still working to get our graphics back up for you guys. But that storm looks like it is starting to tighten a little bit. So Skyline, you need to be in your safe space immediately. Jordan, do you have anything new?
Yeah, don't necessarily have any new updates, but we are going to continue to watch a couple of different tornado warnings. Like Emily said, just looking at a couple of different things. One, the rotation is beginning to tighten up as we head into Skyline. And actually, I'm looking at currently a couple of different areas of rotation. There is the one that is heading directly into Skyline, and then there's also some very broad rotation sitting just to the north of Skyline, and it looks like this activity would eventually move over or at least just to the south of Huntsville High Top. And then the other area of interest that I'm looking at is a tightening of that rotation. At this point, we're kind of in the middle of Triana and Owens Crossroads. So again, if you're in Owens Crossroads, I want you to be in your tornado safe place, of course, as things are about ready to amplify there. And if I look at this storm, if I'm just looking at the radar signature, it kind of looks like maybe a little bit of a hook slowly beginning to develop there as this storm gradually begins to push its way into Owens Crossroads. So if I also look at the wind speed, looks like we're talking about upwards of 60 mile per hour winds heading into Owens Crossroads for the time being. So again, something we're going to continue to watch, something we're going to continue to monitor here over the next several minutes.
Hey everyone, Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio. Of course, you've been listening in for the past several minutes on severe weather coverage from our sister station in Huntsville, Alabama, dealing with the impacts of a tornado and also continued weather threats throughout the evening. We are going to come back in to weather coverage as needed. Keep in mind, as we talked about earlier on the stream here in the Charlotte area, we're asking folks to be weather alert as we go into the overnight hours and of course into the morning tomorrow. And Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich has been keeping us up to date on the very latest with that. He's going to hop back in as necessary as we see anything big popping off in our area. But with that said, we wanted to talk about a big topic for us locally, and that is actually a couple of injuries that happened to law enforcement officers at the Cheerwine Festival over the weekend. You might remember we told you about a Rowan County deputy as well as a Salisbury police officer who were both injured while trying to break up a fight that was at the festival. This fight was amongst 5 to 10, we're told, young people, and officers were able to stop the fight, but not before one law enforcement officer suffered a severe concussion, had to go to the hospital, and the deputy actually had a fractured hip and had to be hospitalized as well. You might remember us also telling you that there were young people who were detained here. Salisbury police took them into custody and they tried to get secured custody orders, basically to be able to hold them until court proceedings could happen, but those secure custody orders were denied, so the young people were released to their parents. Now, we spoke with Rowan County Sheriff Travis Allen about the situation, not just the situation that escalated into the injuries to law enforcement officers, but also about the denial of the secure custody orders, because we've heard this come up before in the context of CMPD, and its attempts to kind of curb youth crime, and we've heard the police department talking about its concerns with some of the difficulties in securing these custody orders, and essentially, in some cases, leaving young people to commit further crimes while they are out on the streets waiting for their court date for their first crime. So let's listen now here on Live Impact News to Sheriff Travis Allen.
I'll look down the middle so everybody's good on each side. All right, good deal.
Easiest question, can we just get you to give us your full name?
Yeah, Travis Allen, Sheriff of Rowan County.
Yeah, walk us through the release y'all put out, sort of what happened this weekend and what your take was on it.
Sure, first I'll give you an update on our deputy. I don't think we'll release his name. Go ahead, I've talked to the family and that's fine. His name is Zachary Miles Holshouser. I'll give you the spelling afterwards. He is 25 years old. And he's been a deputy just 2 years to the day that he was injured. He was sworn in on the 15th of April last year, so about a year and a month since he was sworn in. So he's a relatively new employee, been here about a year and about a month. He's doing well. He had a hip replacement, not hip replacement surgery, but hip surgery on Monday morning in Charlotte. The doctors felt that the surgery went very well. They are encouraged that he should have a should have a full recovery from that. May have some implications later on in life as he gets older, but nothing that they felt that he would not be able to return to work one day. But it's going to be a long process. At least 12 weeks of not being able to put a lot of weight on that. So it's probably going to be a year process before he's able to return to work. But his prognosis is well. His spirits are, he's in good spirits. He's young. He doesn't like to be laying in the bed, so you can imagine the energy level he has. But he's the picture of what every sheriff, what every highway patrol captain, or any criminal justice organization, city police want to hire. He's a local young man, excellent character, handsome young guy, very good with people, very pleasant, just a great employee. If he would be the envy of any chief of police or sheriff to get an applicant from. Just a great public servant. I was working that day. He had just come by our tent at the Cherry Wine Festival, sit down and spoke with my wife and I. It's such a pleasant young man. He still hasn't dampened his spirits for the job at all. He's very excited to get back to work, or get going, get moving. Very physically fit young man. If you ever get to meet him, you'll see that laying in bed for about a couple months is going to be very tough on him. But his spirits are well, so we're encouraged by that.
Can you explain what happened to cause him to get hurt?
Right. We were at first of all, I have worked a lot of events in 31 years of law enforcement. The Cherry Wine Festival was a massive, massive event. Very well done. If you would have been here, you would have thought you were at Times Square on the 4th of July. The city of Salisbury and the Salisbury Police Department did an excellent job of securing that place. It was, I think they estimated anywhere from about 80,000 people in attendance. Very crowd, very well controlled. Just a great day, a really good day, excellently put on. Toward the end of that event, there was a disturbance inside the venue, just toward the outskirts of the footprint, but inside the footprint, where a dozen or so juveniles began to fight, and that is where these injuries took place. Of course, we know the Salisbury officer had a concussion. And then our deputy suffered his hip fracture. I was about a block away when I heard the call, so I responded there. I was there shortly after. We were just then securing the last of the juveniles that we had put into custody. I was not there for the fight, but got there a little bit. Had to run a couple blocks to get to where we were at, but very good police presence was already there. And what's interesting to find out is this took place even with police watching it in the park, monitoring the situation. It popped off so fast. So the juveniles were not even abated by the presence of law enforcement. That's why it happened so quickly. Law enforcement was there immediately. Both Salisbury contracts with numerous agencies. There were officers everywhere. It was a great security plan, and it was really a great event. And the fight was very short-lived. The officers were there quickly and responded, but it's unfortunate that two officers sustained some serious injuries.
How did they? So did they just try to intervene and stop the scuffle?
Yes, the fight was not between law enforcement and the minorities. The minorities were two different groups. They had met in the park. The city of Salisbury is looking into that, if they were gang related or not. We don't know. It just happened over the weekend. Salisbury's looking into all that. But the officers were there simply breaking up the fight, and I'm sure you've seen some of the public social media posts of it. It was pretty much what you'd call the South of Fricassee going on, right? It was very chaotic, but a lot of officers there, you can see in those videos taking the most aggressive people and trying to put them under control. And that's what I believe how our deputy was hurt during one of those processes of trying to gain control, was fallen upon, fell on, crushed up underneath a pile with his leg kind of bent in an awkward position while he was wrestling someone, and that's what caused the injury. He received great care. The city of Salisbury had not contracted, but they had several emergency service personnel on, just a well-done event where medics were there immediately. Very well done. We were very pleased with the whole response there, even from the hospital here at Rowan Salisbury, the Nova Hospital here in Rowan County, but it was in Salisbury. It was really good from the treatment that he received.
In the release, you talked about how these juveniles were all essentially released. Can you walk us through that?
Well, it not being our part of it is that Rowan County is our jurisdiction. That's the city of Salisbury's job. They did an excellent job. We worked very closely with those individuals. The chief and I have had numerous conversations. Even with the city manager has contacted me, and we've spoken. We just have a very good relationship with them. Salisbury City did everything within their power. They did every step properly. And they reported the offense to the juvenile authorities, who are the ultimate say in what happens in these incidents. And as you know, the system, the juvenile justice system, has a step process of points to determine who goes to secure custody. It doesn't have anything to do with our local DA. I see Brandy Cook's been getting some negative publicity on social media. It has nothing to do with Brandy. It has nothing to do with the Salisbury City Police Department. And it really doesn't have anything to do with juvenile services. They're only operating under the mandate and the laws that they have to operate under. My concern is that we are operating under as a whole, law enforcement, district attorney's office, the courts, and juvenile services, is an inadequate system. It's not anyone's fault in the system. You know, you see everybody saying, well, who was the person that let them go? It wasn't a who, it was a what. It was a system. People within that system can only do what the law allows them to do. They can only work under the same constraints any employee does and the guidelines they're given. But that's what I desperately want to see changed. I'm probably a rarity as a sheriff. Not only have I been sheriff and a deputy for 30 years, I also was on the school board for 8 years. So I can see this issue from two different aspects. I can see it from the classroom and the problems we have in some of our schools, and I can also see it as a law enforcement officer from the problems that we have in some of our neighborhoods and our communities. And it's just not isolated to Salisbury. It's not isolated. It's all over the United States. Just recently, the chief of police in Winston-Salem, I believe, verbally spoke out about a plan he has with some minors that are terrorizing downtown at nights and things. So it's a part of a situation I think really started on December the 1st, 2019, when we changed the juvenile law where we don't treat 16 and 17-year-olds as adults. And I think that set a precedent. And I think it's been downhill since then.
Can you kind of break down the age range for the, and I don't know if you got everyone and so forth, but of the juveniles that were involved and then the different charges that were?
No, that would have to be for City of Salisbury Police Department. The age range varied from all over the scale there. That would be a question you would have to ask them.
What steps are you taking to get maybe the legislation changed?
Right. Well, I have a very good avenue. I'm a member of the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, which all 100 sheriffs participate in some form in that, and I'm on their legislative committee. So I am actually already involved with how the sheriffs in North Carolina review law, present law to the legislation. Matter of fact, I'll be in Raleigh next week with the Sheriff's Association in legislative moves, very close to our local representatives. And where we're at an impasse is I think that the one thing that's left out of the system that is truly the piece that is missing is how we hold parents accountable, right? How do we hold parents and guardians accountable for repeated actions? North Carolina is very, when you go looking at the law, we're very bankrupt in the charge for parents. Basically, we have to fall back to a catch-all charge of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, which is very vague, very difficult for district attorneys to prove that you contributed to the delinquency by not supervising your child. Very hard threshold for district attorneys to meet. As part of the North Carolina Sheriff's Association Legislative Committee, I'm going to be personally communicating with legislators and myself, and to try to develop a specific law and word that. It probably will take years to do, but to have a charge where we have undisciplined youth and unsupervised individuals committing violent crimes, that the parents are held responsible and their guardians are held responsible, especially for repeat offenders.
You touched on this, but as a separate question, I think some of the comments I saw were just frustration to see, you know, 2 peace officers injured in something like this, and essentially the folks responsible walking away without any sort of real punishment. I'm guessing that's a frustration y'all would mirror.
You know, it's a frustration for me because they're officers, but also let's look at it in a different light. Let's look at it if you're just, you know, sometimes we get upset when it's a law enforcement officer because it's more flashy, it's more noticeable. But what about the thousands of victims that aren't, that are subject to this type of violence from these individuals? The normal citizens, the regular citizen, they don't deserve it no more than the law enforcement officer does. So I just think this situation when law enforcement is injured, while it's very bad and we don't like that, maybe it's an opportunity to bring to light a bigger problem, because it's just, you know, we don't want to forget that it's just not law enforcement that suffers from this, but it's the citizens of every community, every town. It's the 80,000 people that were here for a great event that could have possibly went really bad. I'm just very fortunate there were no weapons involved. Very fortunate there wasn't any type of that going on, but we see that all across the United States where often that's not the case. So it doesn't necessarily have to be because it's law enforcement that's injured. Our job in law enforcement is to protect the community.
Folks, we're going to take a quick pivot here and listen in full to this report from Nashville, Tennessee, where they've got some impacts from severe weather. Let's listen into this reporter.
The roof completely, the homeowner tells me, but certainly did some damage here. And I'm going to have our photographer, Brandon, here pan around a little bit so you can see some of the other trees that have been damaged here. I mean, certainly something big came through here, that's for sure. So I can tell you a little bit of what the homeowner told me about how this all went down. So she was sitting in the living room when this storm started coming through here with her dog. Her dog started freaking out, kind of, she told me, and that kind of raised the alarm for her. They ran into the shelter in her closet inside the home that's meant for the storm shelter, and they were able to get safe as that tree fell down. So no injuries, no one's hurt, thankfully, here. But yeah, you can see, I mean, it really looks like something big came through here when you look at the trees, and branches snapped off the top here, and obviously, of course, this big tree that's down on this home here again in Murfreesboro. This is Blackman Road.
Okay, so of course we just heard there a report from a reporter on scene of some storm damage in the Nashville, Tennessee area. We do remain weather alert in our area, the Charlotte area, and we are keeping an eye on this line of storms moving through the Tennessee area, also seeing some impacts to Alabama, and we are going to be watching the very latest as far as the weather impacts. We're just going to keep it here for a bit and kind of listen in on the feed, just make sure that we're not missing any additional information. But yeah, you can see rather large tree that has been uprooted. You can kind of see, you know, basically the base of that tree snapped off of its root system, and there on that house, quick pan around the crew there on scene, showing us the rest of the neighborhood. Looks like you've got some smaller pine trees which might have toppled over on a neighbor's home across the street. But this is just a snapshot of what's been a very busy last several days for this region of the country. And we've been seeing things, you know, from tornadoes.
Nobody is hurt here, thankfully. They're definitely shaken up. I mean, even the little dog was barking and very shaken up, obviously after what happened, but nobody hurt.
Okay, so it looks like there was a few more details to be gotten from the scene there, and glad to hear, at least in this situation, this scene, that nobody was hurt. On Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, of course, we've been covering other areas where folks have not been quite as lucky. We've seen, you know, loss of life and major damage to buildings, to homes, absolutely leveled. So this, while of course a very frightening, and you can see impactful situation, tree landing on a home. Obviously, there's quite a bit of damage that will have to be cleaned up here. I'm thankful to hear that there were no injuries on this particular scene. So we will keep an eye on not only our feed here from Tennessee, but also we've got feeds coming to us from Alabama as well. You might start to see those circle into our 3-box, and then of course our radar, which you see there in the bottom right corner of our screen. That is the Charlotte area. You can see those line of storms moving in, and you're noting too, probably as you look at the time code there, the top of that radar, indicating Wednesday morning. So we mentioned this, the fact that we're going to be weather alert through the overnight hours and into the morning, and our team is going to be keeping us updated on the very latest. Brad Panovich is here, and we're told that Chris Mulcahy and Brad, they're going to do a handoff overnight to make sure that there are no gaps in our coverage for you. So with that, we do want to go ahead and pivot here. We had our interview with Rowan County Sheriff Travis Allen. We're going to jump back in with that. And of course, anything big and breaking here on Live Impact News with these feeds, we will take you back there live.
For Washington, we can still have some of those same type issues that the big cities have, and it's time that we really focus on getting a focal grip on it. And again, I'm not here in my statement did not blame any specific person. It blamed the system, because that system is broken, because we don't hold the most important people accountable. We don't hold the offenders accountable, and we don't hold the parents that are not keeping up with their kids and have no idea what they're doing or where they're at, or even they know what they do and they can't control them. So it's time that we start holding those people responsible.
How would you define secure custody orders?
A secure custody order is generally it's not much different than when we operated in 2019, but it was under the age of 16, that you cannot or you could not house a minor with adults. And it's a very for a facility like mine, there's 4 county facilities in the state, I believe, that have juvenile facilities. There's 9 state facilities, so I think there's 13 in all. But most counties of our size and most jurisdictions of our size don't have anywhere to secure juvenile inmates. We can't mix them with our adult population. So when a juvenile commits a crime, an officer will often, if they feel that crime is a violent crime or this juvenile is a danger to the community, will ask
Hey folks, we're getting some pretty stunning imagery from Huntsville, Alabama, courtesy of our sister station out there. So we're going to put a quick pause here on the sheriff, and we'll get back to him as soon as we can. But let's take you now to this continuous coverage from our sister station in Alabama regarding some of the severe weather impacts that they are seeing tonight.
In Madison, that video was taken. Thank you so much again to that photographer for sending us that video. So let's go back. I want to look at the hail swath, as a matter of fact, since my wife was providing me with a storm report. Talking about a little bit of hail in Owens Crossroads. Certainly can see that there. Once again, this storm does have a history of producing hail. Now, most of these storms have a history of producing hail, and at times over the last couple of hours since we've been with you, these storms have had a history of producing rather large hail. So that's also something that we want to continue to monitor. Zoomed things out, we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect. Looks like that includes the Huntsville metro area. I'm going to take this back over to the radar. So new severe thunderstorm warning in effect. That includes the Huntsville metro area. No tornado warning for the Huntsville metro area, but it does look like we have a new severe thunderstorm warning in effect. And we still have our tornado warning that is in effect for Madison County. That's going to run until 8 o'clock this evening. Jackson County, tornado warning in effect. That's also going to run until 8 o'clock this evening. And then we also have yet another tornado warning that is in effect for Jackson County, excuse me. That's going to run until 8 o'clock this evening. And then we have a tornado warning for DeKalb County. That is going to run until 8 o'clock this evening. So going to continue to watch this, going to continue to pay attention to this. Let's zoom in here. I want to see if we can see any clear defined rotation at all within this storm. And I don't see any sort of clear defined rotation. I can go ahead and pull up our wind shear. Maybe I can. Oh, that's certainly some good news. That would explain why I couldn't find the rotation. So, tornado warning for northeast Jackson. So this is the tornado warning we're currently looking at. A lot of wind shear here, but it looks like it's going to be replaced with a severe thunderstorm warning instead. And again, was looking at this and didn't really see any great rotation associated with this storm. So the National Weather Service has gone ahead and canceled this tornado warning that we're currently looking at. So let's go back out and let's look at the Tennessee Valley as a whole. And I'm just going to continue to check to see if I have any updates. Like Emily said, we have canceled the tornado warning for DeKalb and Jackson. Now, we do still, well, this is only part of Jackson. We still have our other tornado warning here, and this is for Madison and Jackson counties. Now, this is also supposed to run until 8 o'clock. So still got about another 7 or 8 minutes on this tornado warning not yet heard if they're going to allow this one to expire. This one has shown some fairly steady rotation associated with it. So I don't see where it would be allowed to expire here at 8 o'clock. If you're in Grant, I want you to be in your tornado safe place. And it looks like it looks like we're still talking about some rotation here across the southern portion of this.
Cab, Marshall, Madison, and Jackson.
So I'm guessing that's this storm here.
Yes. This one was, yes, it was north of Guntersville, moving east at 35, and this is going to go until 8:45.
So that's definitely going to be this storm here. Going to continue to look at this, going to continue to watch and monitor this. So this storm here basically has produced a new tornado warning. You said to the east at 35? Yes. So brand new tornado warning has been issued for basically all of northeast Alabama, like Emily was saying. DeKalb, Marshall, Madison, and Jackson counties. And like Emily said, that tornado warning is going to run until 8:45. So just under an hour on that particular tornado warning. So continuing to watch this. Again, this storm moving directly to the east. Now, the good news with this specific storm is that I don't think we have a confirmed tornado tag associated with this storm. So definitely a little bit of good news there that we do not have a confirmed tornado tag, but it's something that we're going to continue to watch and something that I certainly want to continue to pay attention to. You never, at this point, we certainly don't ever want to let our guards down as far as this storm is concerned. So something we're going to continue to watch, something we're going to continue to pay attention to very quickly or very closely here over the next several minutes as we continue to monitor this storm as it pushes its way through North Alabama and
Folks, you've been watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, looking into live continuous coverage from our affiliate in Huntsville, Alabama, obviously dealing with many warnings in this area. Of course, they've been dealing with severe weather impacts, including a tornado. So we will, of course, keep you updated as we see more information coming on this front. Don't forget, coming up on the news at 11 here on WCNC Plus, our Brad Panovich will keep us weather aware of what we need to know, because we do have some threats to know about as we go into the overnight hours. And for folks who are joining us here on the stream all the way through 11, something to know about programming coming up here at the top of the hour. We do have an From the Archives segment coming up for you regarding the Motor Speedway pedestrian bridge collapse. Today, marking 25 years since one of the biggest disasters in NASCAR history, that pedestrian bridge at the then Lowe's Motor Speedway collapsing.